In its broadest sense, Fit to Thrive really is a renewed commitment to firefighter physical, psychological, and social well-being. There's a lot of different needs that firefighters have. The job is extremely physically demanding, as you guys obviously know. And firefighters have a variety of, I guess they're exposed to a variety of risks. And because of that, the health of firefighters in many instances does suffer. And so this is from some work that was done a few years ago, but really highlighted some primary concerns that firefighters are facing. And it was cardiovascular disease, cancer, and behavioral health, amongst others. And it's one thing, I guess, to cite that these are issues, but then it's how do we actually address this? And this is something that the IAFF is constantly working towards. How do we make members healthier, safer, and better prepared for the job, and I guess for life off the job. And with regards to these three things in particular, two of the primary factors that kept shaking out as I guess dominant contributors were obesity and culture. And so when we were looking at this type of information through the peer fitness trainer lens and kind of the legacy program that was there, was how can we fit? How can pure fitness really maybe reposition or reimagine itself within the context of the entire needs that firefighters have? And the big thing was, in kind of looking at all the evidence, exercise really is this magic pill. And so what I'm sharing with you guys here on the screen here, all of these different things are evidence-based. And so exercise can really help us, firefighters, avoid so many of the things that firefighters are currently suffering. So anything from depression and anxiety to heart disease to cancer, sleep apnea or other conditions of sleep. There's a lot of evidence to support the fact that exercise and physical activity can really help prevent or manage a lot of these conditions. And on the other side, exercise, can really help us do a lot of positive stuff too. And so within the context of, the physical demands of firefighting and knowing how that can just, wear people down and tear them down over a long career, it's really thinking about, okay, we as, this peer fitness trainer program, can really make a difference more broadly than just fitness. So it's not just about becoming more fit. It really is about becoming more active. And a lot of these benefits that are listed right here are tied to regular physical activity, not the pursuit of a specific fitness outcome, which is a very big distinction. There's a big difference between the pursuit of a kind of a fitness score and the pursuit of being active on a regular basis. And so when thinking about the evolution from pure fitness to Fit to Thrive, it was within that context. And so the broad aim, like the mission that we have with the Fit to Thrive program is now more firefighters, more active, more often. That's the goal. And if we can get more firefighters more active more often, then a lot of the things that firefighters are experiencing on the negative side, a lot of that stuff will go away. Right now, unfortunately, we have at least what the evidence is showing, that approximately 20% of firefighters, only 20% are actually meeting the physical activity guidelines that were established by the World Health Organization. And that's for general population. And knowing how physically demanding firefighting is, the fact that only 20% are meeting that standard is probably even worse for firefighters. And along with the only 20% meeting the physical activity requirements, that corresponds with 80% of firefighters being either overweight or obese. And those two things in combination are really going to be contributing to all the negative health outcomes that we have, and the lack of some of those positive things. And so our thought here was that with Fit to Thrive, if we can really establish this mission of trying to get more people active in any way that we can, then that's going to have a huge kind of downstream effect on health and well-being, and on the physical side, the psychological side. So everything that we're trying to do with Fit to Thrive really is under the umbrella of more firefighters, more active, more often. Now, I think the other unique thing, perhaps about Fit to Thrive, is that we're looking at this a little bit more broadly. So it's not just, like I said, it's not about getting people fit per se. Obviously, we want everybody to be, to have the level of fitness that would be appropriate for, their job and, the demands they have in life in general. But it's also recognizing that the reasons why people are or are not active stem from behaviors. And so if we're going to go in and actually address this mission or chase this mission of trying to get more firefighters more active, then we have to look at this through a behavioral lens. We have to try and understand, why are firefighters active or why are they not active right now? So that the solutions and the recommendations and the resources that can be created that are tied to Fit to Thrive are not just about, here's a bunch of exercise stuff, go get more fit. Or here's a bunch of information to tell you why exercise is good. It's not about that. It is about that, but it's not entirely about that, because we have to try and understand, what is influencing the behaviors of individuals at the moment, and can we address those things? Can we build resources? Can we build education that supports, some of these other things that tie into the behaviors or the habits that the firefighters currently have? And so that's, I guess, where we're coming from in terms of the scope and the resources and everything that will be part of the Fit to Thrive program. So just to extend on that, what I'd like to try and do here is just have everybody kind of immerse themselves in this a little bit, is do a little bit of a poll. And so we have a questionnaire that we can definitely share with everyone afterwards. And so I have 6 questions, and these are just only 6 of a bigger questionnaire, but 6 questions that I'd like you guys to think about and to perhaps answer in this poll, and we can see how everybody that's on the webinar right now responds. But this questionnaire is really trying to understand the factors that influence the exercise habits or the physical activity habits of someone, so that better recommendations or solutions can actually be created. So I'm going to share this poll in a second, but before I do, I'll just kind of run through the questions quickly so you get a sense of what we're looking for here. So each of these questions, I want you to reflect on your own exercise and physical activity habits and ask yourself, to what extent do you agree that the statement that you see influences your involvement in moderate to vigorous exercise or physical activity? Okay, so you're going to see a series of 6 statements, and really think about, to what extent does this influence your involvement? There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. All this is saying is, based on responses, this might be how we have to address the solution, because these are factors that are perhaps influencing your behavior to varying degrees. And each of the statements, we're going to have you guys rank on the scale of 1 to 5. 1 being, doesn't influence at all, 5 being, very strong influence. So I'll run through the 6 questions and I'll launch the poll so you guys can go through that. So first one is going to be having the physical skills to exercise and be active in a range of settings. Second one is just having an appreciation, so more on the psychological side, appreciation for the health and wellness benefits that are associated with leading an active lifestyle. Next one is kind of the, are there sufficient opportunities for you to be active? So do you have the time to engage in exercise or physical activity on most days of the week, whether that's at work or at home? Do you receive physical, psychological, or emotional support from members in your close social networks? So that could be colleagues, it could be friends, it could be family. Do you have the self-confidence to actually engage in regular exercise? So having the knowledge or having the skills is very distinct from actually having the self-confidence. And then the last question is, do you have established routines or habits that are influencing your involvement in exercise? So with all that said, I'm going to launch the poll now, and you'll see those 6 questions. And so if you wouldn't mind, just take about a minute here to answer these for us. So you guys should see the poll there now. So it's all anonymous. So there's no, nobody's tracking anything you guys are saying here. It's more just to get a sense of perhaps the diversity that exists across our group. So it's great. So we have about half people responded so far. So I'll give another minute or so. So it's very interesting. And the other thing you guys can think about as you're looking at the questions here, would your colleagues, your coworkers, answer in the same way? You know, so you're obviously thinking about your own physical activity habits as you answer these questions, but you know, would your peers, would your crew, would they answer in the same way? And think about the potential implications of whether or not you say yes or no. Okay, that's awesome. Really appreciate it. So we have about 80% of people responded. So I'm going to end the poll here, and I will share the results with everyone. So you should be able to see the results now. So I just want you to look at the diversity that exists. You know, so first question, you know, we have at least one person responding to all. You know, the 3, 4, and 5, you know, are kind of, you know, over 20% for each of those. We see number 2, so most people are answering 4 or 5, so having an appreciation for the health and wellness benefits. Interesting that time perhaps is an influence for some, but not a major influence for others. Receiving some type of support, this is quite varied. And so some people think that, or at least feel that, you know, having social support in some way is definitely a very strong influence on their activity habits, but others don't feel that that's the case at all. And, you know, last one as well, having self-confidence. So some people very strong influence and some people are kind of middle of the road. And so the reason for, I'm just going to stop sharing there. So I really appreciate it. Thank you guys. So I guess what I wanted to highlight with this is that when we view our activity habits as behaviors, we also have to appreciate that our behaviors are influenced by things that don't influence our peers, or vice versa. And so when coming up with recommendations, we can't use a one-size-fits-all solution. You know, we have to really think about all the different factors that are currently driving or influencing the behaviors, and in this case, the activity habits of firefighters. And if the solutions that we're putting forwards are not addressing all of the factors, or at least most of the factors that are influencing their physical activity habits, then it's going to be very hard to change them. You know, if all we did was tell people how beneficial exercise was, and we didn't address the actual opportunities they have to be active, or we didn't address the motivation that they have to be active, or the self-confidence they have to be active, then maybe we're not going to be as successful as we could be. And so by just taking a little bit of time on the front end to really try and establish what are the factors that are driving you know, our members' behaviors, it could really open up our eyes to say, okay, here are, you know, multiple parts of the solution that are actually going to help us you know, pursue this direction we're trying to chase. And I'll build on that you know, as we go for the rest of the webinar. But you know, the Fit to Thrive program is really trying to look at things through a behavioral lens, so that the resources and the education that is being provided to you guys, the support that we're giving firefighters in their departments, really actually addresses the unique needs that they have. So as an extension of that, you know, these are our four pillars of the commitment that we have within the F2T program. The last one, again, like I've just been saying, is it's really behavior driven. In addition to that, we want the resources to be accessible to all. And so we don't want it to be a challenge for, you know, small departments, big departments, rural departments. We want everybody to have access. And so, you know, a year ago now, we made transition to you know, having a lot of, you know, education go online, and it's been absolutely outstanding to see not only the response and the feedback, but how much more accessible some of this can be. And so we want to try and remove barriers that individuals have. so that the benefits that we feel are coming with the Fit to Thrive program are actually accessible to all. Second point here, just to be inclusive, is, as I mentioned, this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. This is really trying to understand the diverse needs that exist across the fire service. Everybody's got, even within, different fire departments, there are going to be unique needs. And then, within individual members, there's obviously, it's work and life and play, and there's a lot of different interests. And so we want to make sure that we're really trying to accommodate the diversity that does exist, to be as inclusive as possible. And obviously the comprehensive piece, as I alluded to earlier, this is not just a physical pursuit or a physical outcome. So there are going to be multiple outcomes that come from being physically active. The solutions that we're providing are trying to address the physical activity behaviors, but it's not all about going to exercise. And then at the same time, there are going to be benefits outside of physical activity, the mental health and the social health and so on. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen here to provide benefit. So within this, how we're approaching this. So like I said, it's not just about education, it's not just about exercise. And so we have 4 different components to Fit to Thrive that all work together to try and support firefighters and address the activity habits or the exercise behaviors that we're trying to change in getting more firefighters more active. So education, training, which is kind of the exercise piece. There's mentorship, and this is where we're really trying to take a peer-to-peer model, as has historically been there with the peer fitness trainer program, establish a community of ambassadors that are going to support on the front line, and they have the knowledge, the skills, the confidence to do what they need to do. And then obviously want to provide support directly to members, directly to departments, so they can actually achieve the success that they want to achieve. And I'll just dig into each of these a little bit more. So on the education side, so we have a whole bunch of different types of education, from courses and workshops, webinars, little challenges that will address the skills that are going to be required to be an ambassador within the F2T program for your department. But I guess one thing I want to highlight with these is there's in-person options, there's virtual options where you get to interact with the IAFF's team of instructors. There are online options that are completely asynchronous, so it's just you on your own time. But the scope of the education is also not just exercise or physical activity. The scope is, as I mentioned, really trying to appreciate the factors that influence the behaviors that firefighters have and why they are or are not active. And so we need to provide education to address some of those things. And so, what are the, some of the factors or the obstacles that people have to being active? And so just something like that, overcoming obstacles, how do we change habits? How do we change behaviors? And so there will be education provided to the community in support of those type of ideas. So a lot of the breadth of education that we hope to share with you guys is much broader than just the exercise piece. And if anyone is interested, we can share a link afterwards that highlights a few of the workshops and the courses that will be coming to you guys over the next 12 months or so. As an example, so I know some of the text might be small for you guys here, but I just wanted to highlight with our foundational course, our F2T 101 course. Some of you may have taken this 101 course. Historically, it was the Peer Fitness Trainer Certificate course. And just to highlight with this one that big learning objectives that we have, whether it's delivered in person or online, is around assessment, design, implementation, and leadership. And the implementation is not just the implementation of exercise, but the implementation of more the holistic, wellness type of program. And so the curriculum is really geared towards, those components. There is an exam with this course, but we view the exam as a means to really assess whether learning has happened. And so, with the education within the Fit to Thrive program, we're also trying to reimagine the role that education plays in supporting this pursuit of more active more often. And so the exam is actually administered 4 weeks after the course is finished to try and get a better sense of whether individuals have learned or not. And it's not, we don't want the pressure of sitting down and writing a 2-hour exam. So anyone who comes in through the course, you actually have 2 weeks to complete the exam on your own time. Because we really want to, we want you to feel that you're also learning as you go through the exam, but it is a reflection of how much you've taken away from the course that happened previously. And the other component to here, which is somewhat different than some of the other courses that are out there, is there is a kind of a practical skills component. And so alongside of this this knowledge piece, we have everyone has to do this F2T challenge. And what that is everyone has to do something very, very small, but that reflects one of the potential roles that they will have as a peer fitness trainer or as an ambassador for wellness and fitness within their department. And so it's a complete, no complete. And provided that they complete this and they meet the criteria, the 70% pass mark, then everybody is given their peer fitness trainer certificate and becomes a member of the Fit to Thrive community. I guess one other quick thing just to highlight. So it isn't, in addition to just the like the courses and the workshops, we're also creating a much broader, perhaps more comprehensive curriculum that departments can plug into. And this is, kind of taking the idea of, over 12 months, what could this look like to engage the actual members on a day-to-day basis? And this could be something that the peer fitness trainer, actually helps to facilitate. But we have a curriculum that addresses different components of wellness and fitness. And this is just, an example of something that we're working on right now. There are different resources within this curriculum, whether it's, infographics, podcasts, various educational videos. But this is an example of something that would be, for duty, for life. And so then over the course of this month, different resources are shared that fall underneath that umbrella. Again, to engage members, to try and get them to embrace the idea of being active on a regular basis a little bit more. So under the training side, this is where it really is about the exercise piece. And again, we have a range of different options, solutions, trying to accommodate the diversity that does exist across the fire service. So again, we don't want this to be a one size fits all. We don't want this to be viewed as exercise has to look a certain way. And so, some people don't like to work out in the gym. Some people don't like to work out at work. Some people don't like to work out at home. Some people do like to work out at home. Some people don't want to take longer than 10 minutes. So lots of different options. And so again, that's what we want to try and accommodate. But within the context of going back to the World Health Organization guidelines and saying, we want people to be active this much. And so really trying to think about how can we structure things, how can we market things, how can we incentivize involvement or engagement in some of these different exercise activity programs to really address the needs that the firefighters have. A couple examples. So programs, just kind of looking at two ends of the spectrum here. So on one end, just kind of a program, kind of thinking about active start. So someone who perhaps, is less or has been less involved in activity, we really want them to become more active. And so the target really is just about getting more active at this point. So along with this, there are ways to monitor progress or success along the way. So perhaps it's not to the same extent. What can you do on this fitness test? Maybe ultimately that becomes part of the goal, but the first step for this individual is not, what's your fitness score? It's, can we get you more active? Can, you spend more time being active on a regular basis? So that perhaps, in 6 months, 12 months, now we can start looking at, some of the other, benefits or outcomes that we might feel are relevant. But the first step is let's get more active. And, we're looking at different ways to try and incentivize or get people engaged. And in this case, it's really, can over the course of say a month, can the individual do, this type of activity, a few times? Can this individual play with different durations of activity. So here's a 5-minute thing, here's a 15-minute thing, here's something you can do in the privacy of your own home. And so this is really trying to change their perspective of what exercise and physical activity might look like. So perhaps their current perception or their historical perception of what it was isn't actually, maybe that perception is what was the barrier to them being active as much as they need to be. And so if we can actually change their perception a little bit and say, hey, there is something in here for me, maybe they're more likely to then say, okay, what else do you have? And then on the other end of the spectrum, individuals that love to be active, kind of this idea of being ready for anything. So we can actually establish different challenges for these individuals. So within the I guess the literature around being intrinsically motivated, we want to definitely celebrate this type of individual. We also want to give them more, feed that desire to be active, make it sustainable long term. And so we can look at things like autonomy and competence and relatedness, and how do we embed different strategies within the design or structure of these programs, or the incentives, or the assessments that are tied to it, to really reinforce these positive habits. And at the whole time, we're also thinking about how can we take these two perhaps seemingly distinct individuals, or types of individuals, but have them come together in some type of team challenge, department challenge, where they are working collectively, so that everybody feels like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And so these are the types of resources that we're trying to provide under the training domain of Fit to Thrive. So on the mentorship side, so this really is looking at our ambassadors, and we have 3 levels of ambassadors. So we have the peer fitness trainer, which is kind of the historical piece of the peer fitness trainer program. But now we actually have 1 level above that and 1 level below that as well, to try and get more people involved. And also realizing that there are many different roles that these individuals might play. And so within your department, you might be thinking about, well, here's what I want this individual to do, but I'd really like to have somebody else who perhaps oversees some of this, as a bit of a coordinator. And so we have the advanced level training and certificate is our fitness and performance specialist. And to achieve this designation, it's actually 3 of the Fit to Thrive courses and 3 of the Fit to Thrive workshops. And then at any point, if you're able to complete those, then you become eligible to receive your FPS designation and all the benefits that come with that. If you have individuals that are interested in becoming more engaged or more involved, but are perhaps not sure about the level of commitment of a peer fitness trainer and taking the 101 course that we have an entry-level position, which is a wellness and fitness ambassador. And you can receive that designation just by doing one of our workshops. So 2-hour workshop at any point. As soon as you complete that, you'll become eligible to receive your WFA certificate and all the benefits that come along with that. So really trying to address or cater to the diverse interests and needs that departments have, and actually the members have as well. So from one of the questions that always comes up is, what does this look like from a cost perspective, to help with budgeting? Well, with a budget, from a budget perspective, we have to consider the upfront cost. What does this look like? And so again, on the left-hand side here with the fitness and performance specialist, this could be over any length of time. And so whether this happens within 1 year, whether this happens within 3 years, once you've done your 3 courses, one of which is 101, and your 3 workshops, which is a total investment of about $1,900, then you will be eligible for your FPF certificate. PFTs are just the 101 course. So in person, that's $999, online, $899. But it's about $1,000 investment upfront for each of those individuals, and a $50 investment for the wellness and fitness ambassadors. So you do 1 workshop, costs $49. You can receive your wellness and fitness ambassador certificate. And then looking at this ongoing piece, so there is over a 2-year renewal cycle. And so on an ongoing basis, to renew either the FPS or the PFT is going to be about just what the CE is required and the renewal fee. it's about $300 every 2 years for those individuals. And for the wellness and fitness ambassador, it's about $150 every 2 years. And so just kind of, for budgetary purposes, just thinking about what does this look like as an ongoing investment, that'll be important as well for you to consider. So fourth pillar is obviously, we're trying to support everyone. We want to establish a community here because we really feel that we are better together. There's a lot of people doing some really great things, but a lot of people are thinking about, where do I start? I wish I had access or could communicate with other people who have gone through these same things. And so the IAFF really wants to serve as a bit of a hub for this. And so if we can help connect departments, if we can help to disseminate resources and information that is being gathered or shared by others, we really feel that together we can accomplish a ton. And the whole thing about not being active and trying to be more active, if we're working on this together, we definitely think that there's a lot a lot of progress that can be made in a very short period of time. So with the IAFF, we definitely have plans to share some for free, some for members only, and by member I just mean anybody who has a certificate is a member. And so the access to certain resources will be kind of tailored to the level of certificate that you have. So access is going to be more for an FPS than it would be a PFT, than it would be a WFA. And that is the case because we feel that the education required or that it has been demonstrated by an FPS will allow them to do different things. And so we definitely want to make certain resources available to them to support them in their role. Whereas with the WFA, they have limited exposure, limited access to some of the education and the training. And so we wouldn't necessarily want to put certain things in their hands when they haven't demonstrated the skill set to really use those at the moment. But we want to make resources available to absolutely everybody. And then there's also going to be things that are just freely available to departments that anybody can plug into at any time. And maybe just one thing to highlight. So, I mentioned earlier that we went online with some of the courses that we're offering last June. Since last June, this is kind of the impact or the influence that the IAFF has had. So at least 247 departments are now being supported. We have over 1,500 people that are now ambassadors, to the F2T program within their departments. And this kind of equates to more than 71,000 members. And this is all in less than a year. And so if we can continue pushing things forwards and sharing resources with you guys and supporting departments in their pursuit of trying to make their firefighters more active and healthier, safer, and so on, we're definitely going to be much better collectively. And so we want to serve as somewhat of a hub, as I mentioned, to this idea of more active more often. And just another really interesting thing I thought anyways, of the departments that are currently involved, almost 80% are small. So it's less than 200 people. And so we want to make sure that everyone knows that regardless of your location, regardless of your size, there is a home for you here. And we want to support you in any way that we can. And obviously the constraints, the needs of a small department might be larger or different than a larger department. But as I mentioned, this isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. We're trying to understand, listen to the needs and the interests that you have, and make sure that there are resources and there is support there for you to address the pursuits that you have. And just one other thing within this whole community thing, we're constantly thinking about ways to connect, and have departments, whether it's in one geographical region or otherwise, kind of work together. Like just the idea of who is the most physically active department, and what could you do within your department to become more physically active. And again, this is not about who's the fittest department, who's the most active, like who is meeting the physical activity guidelines. And just thinking about how we as a community can really promote something like that, that will go a long way to making firefighters healthier, safer in the long run. So just last part of the presentation here. Just want to share just a couple thoughts, tips for you guys on not only how perhaps the Fit to Thrive program can help, but also things for you to think about if you're trying to establish a program, really thinking about the implementation of your programs. So yeah, things to consider along the way. And I might, just with the last one, I might lean on our team a little bit just to get some of their thoughts. So the first one, and I think this is absolutely critical, and in my experience, something that is often overlooked. And so right away, you kind of go to the creation of a plan rather than scoping the needs that you have, or what are the initial conditions. And by that, I mean, is your department ready for change? And so we have another questionnaire that we can make freely available to everybody to kind of check yourself out. But I have another poll just to give you guys a bit of a sense of what this looks like. And so there are 4 different, I guess, components of this questionnaire. So we have questions related to department, questions related to leadership, questions related to the members, and questions related to the systems that you have in place to support the implementation or the maintenance of a program like this. And so again, I'll show you guys or share the poll in a second. But when looking at these ones, so it really is around the obstacles that you might be currently facing or you anticipate facing should you decide to implement a wellness and fitness type of program. Okay, so as you guys are answering this or answering these 4 questions, I have 4 questions for you here to answer. But think about, to what extent do you think this item is or will be a barrier to the implementation of your program? Okay, and so it could be what doesn't have any influence whatsoever. It could be a minor barrier or minor obstacle, or I think this is absolutely going to be a major barrier that is going to have to be overcome should we have any chance at being successful. Okay, so first one with regards to the department, and again, these are just 4 of many questions. So think about the way things are done, the values, and the way of thinking within my department. So you can kind of think about this as the culture. So is the culture within your department currently, or would it be a barrier to you implementing a wellness and fitness program? Second one is the management team's involvement in their commitment to and or their support of wellness and fitness. Okay, so how much to what extent would the management team's involvement or commitment to be a barrier? Third one, members' willingness to engage in any department related initiative. So this doesn't have to be their willingness to engage in a wellness and fitness initiative. It could just be their willingness to engage in something that is department led. And then the last one is the creation or execution of a plan. So does not having a plan or not having a agreement on some type of plan, or maybe it's the plan doesn't have all the steps that you feel are needed, but is the creation or the execution of a plan, would that be an obstacle or a barrier to you guys being successful with this implementation of a wellness and fitness program? So I'm going to share the poll again, and I would love for you guys to share what your thoughts on this one. There you go. So give a couple minutes. So definitely seeing a lot of diversity, just like the last poll. So some people saying not an obstacle to all of them, some people saying major obstacle. Okay, so we're about 50% of people. I'll give probably another minute or so here. So again, really appreciate the participation, guys. So we're over 80% now. Amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna end the poll. So we had 84% participate. That's fantastic. So really appreciate it. So I'm going to share the results just so you guys see, again, the diversity that exists amongst this group. And I think this is definitely what I want to highlight in this case. So with every question, as you'll see, there are more than 10% of people in every category for every question. So there's more than 10% that are saying not an obstacle, major obstacle, moderate obstacle. It's kind of spread across the board. And so I think for me, again, what this highlights, and it definitely reflects the feedback received over the past number of years, is that everybody's starting in a different place. Your initial conditions are not the same as another department's initial conditions, and therefore the recommendations, the first steps for you might differ. We all might be trying to get to the same place, but at the end of the day, what you do right now might be a little bit different. And so one other thing just to highlight here is if we take just those 4 categories of the modifiable obstacles. So the 4 questions that I posed to you guys are things that could be modified. So we can change the culture. We can change management's commitment or their involvement in the wellness and fitness program. We can help to establish a better plan. We can change, members' enthusiasm or willingness to engage in an initiative, but it requires perhaps unique strategies or solutions to do so. But if we take, just the fact that there are 4 things, and you as in your department might be answering slightly different than someone else, add on to that, different perspectives from labor management or the members, add on the fact that, one department has money and another doesn't. It really highlights that, we need some unique solutions. And so what we would like to do or do for you guys is to help you navigate this process, to say, okay, here's how my department would answer these questions. What recommendations could be made or what steps could be taken for us given our initial conditions? And going back to what I shared earlier about the education and the resources and the training, the IAFF wants to make sure that there are resources available to people regardless of what your initial conditions are. But we want to help you recognize what those initial conditions are so you can take the appropriate steps. And from my perspective anyways, this is one of the most critical steps in the whole piece. So whether you're launching for the first time or you have launched and you're just kind of in the middle of it and thinking, how do I overcome these obstacles right now? Completing a little questionnaire like this can really help to set the stage for what could come next. Not to say that this is the answer, but here's a possible solution, really trying to consider all the factors that are perhaps that could present themselves as a barrier or an obstacle at the moment. So second tip, really trying to establish a plan and engage people of influence. And so one thing, just super quickly, I know we're getting a little short on time, and I want to make sure there's a couple minutes here for questions from everyone. But think about what successful looks like for you. And there's a lot of different ways or things that you can define success as. But when you're creating your plan and what you're pursuing, in addition to just getting more people active, think about how you're going to measure some of this and make sure that there are pieces put in place to actually help you measure success along the way. So it isn't just about having a 5-year plan and saying at the end of 5 years, I hope this shakes out. It's what are some things you can measure along the way to make sure you're on the right path. So again, these are things that the IAFF can share to help give some direction. Engage the stakeholders, really try and establish values. So people want to know what's in it for me. And so part of this is listening to what they want. And so this is just some work that we've done in the past. When asking members, what they would like out of a wellness and fitness program. Preventing injuries was cited as a big thing. So 50% of people of the group that we polled here said preventing injuries. but the other 50% said something else. And again, that means just that, there's diversity that exists. We asked, whether or not they wanted to see the influence on the job, off the job, or otherwise. 50% said off the job, but 50% also didn't say off the job. And so really listening to the members, giving them a voice, addressing that diversity that exists in some way within the creation of your program and the implementation of your program will go a long way. This is kind of just the whole ambassador piece. One tip, before deciding on who your ambassadors will be, I would suggest, and I think our whole team would suggest, solicit feedback from everybody who's going to be impacted by them. So rather than this being a decision that comes from the top down, ask the members, who do you think is someone of influence that you would actually like to, hear from, learn from? And those perspectives might differ. But if you have the people that are viewed, that are respected and trusted, serving in that role, that could perhaps go a much longer way or farther. Really thinking about the execution of the plan. So we did some work, or are currently even still doing some work on what are the facilitators to implementing a wellness and fitness program. And so this is just highlighting a few of them. But regardless of whether we asked labor management members, regardless of the department size, so small, medium, large, regardless of where they were across the US or Canada, these are some things that shook out as facilitators that could be leveraged to execute a program or to help sustain a program. And so definitely happy to share this with everyone as well. But when you're thinking about implementing or executing a program, try and leverage the things that can really have a positive influence. And you might have a bunch of obstacles in place, but if you can leverage the facilitators at the same time, then you might start to see slow progress along the way. And so the numbers and brackets here are just the percentage of departments that actually identified these factors as being moderate or major facilitators. So very highly influential factors from a positive perspective. And the last thing, and I'll probably stop, but just thinking about leveraging, like I said, just leveraging the facilitators to maintain progress. So I'm going to end there. If depending on the questions that we have, I might ask our team just to comment on this last one as well. So just within their own departments, do they have any facilitators that they would comment on that have helped them out? But before I do, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and maybe open up the floor to some questions. So what is the future of the Wellness and Fitness Initiative? IFC and IAFF going to keep updating it? Is it going away? F2T seems to be focused just on the physical fitness. So WFI is not going away by any means. WFI has been there since the late 90s. It's going to still persist. It's definitely, as was mentioned, much broader than F2T. Again, I want to highlight that F2T is not physical fitness per se, it's physical activity. So fitness is a part of it, but it's really trying to get more people active. Whereas the Wellness and Fitness Initiative is definitely much more broad. And so currently the IAFF is looking at how do we perhaps improve the WFI, and working closely with the IFC to try and think about can we expand it, make it better. Obviously, since the last edition, there are things like sleep and nutrition that also play a huge role. But with the WFI as well, it's also thinking about how can we provide more support on the implementation side. So I think the components of the WFI and what the WFI is, I think does a really good job of highlighting the I guess the scope of wellness within the fire service and things that should be considered. But I think where we're trying to improve and provide more support is what could this actually look like for a department? Given my initial conditions, where would I start? Given the budget that I have, what are some, what's some low-hanging fruit that I could, touch on to gain some momentum? And so really focusing on the implementation of the WFI is going to be a focus of the IFC and IFF moving forwards, but by no means is it going away. I think it's just going to continue to improve.